Let me tell Brian to
Okay,
start.
Brian's here as well. Okay.
If Brian is listening, I'll let them start because as long as we don't keep time, people will not respect our program.
Exactly.
We need
Kato,
to
are we
keep
going
time.
to we're going to keep the same schedule as last week?
Yes, the same schedule. Actually, Brian says
Super.
we are live and we are not. Brian says we are live.
We've just gone live now. Hi, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
Right,
I don't.
I do think we are live, Kato.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good. Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to yet another interesting episode, which is called To Activism Africa. And tonight, with my co-host Linda Tilly, based in South Africa, we are going to have a very interesting take on one of the best challenges so far. You know, I use the word best, yet it's the worst challenges so far that affect Africa and the entire world. It is manifested into a number of facets or layers, but basically, we're talking about the challenges of unemployment, which spills over into the creation of people fleeing from Africa, but also the challenge of migrant laborers or labor, people going, especially in the dead zone we call the Middle East. The Middle East, which people call the Arab world, has become the most specific place today where people from all over the world, poor people, go to look for a fortune. Why? Because in the Middle East, it's easier to simply cross. They don't want you to have so many things as if you are going to Europe or USA. A mere possession of a passport can give you a chance to go to the Middle East. Now we are seeing a challenge of migrant labor. We are seeing a challenge of people going there and getting mistreated and dying in the process. So today, we are going to handle that very specific topic. But before we go into that, and before we invite everyone on board, I want to remind you that yes, we are handling the state of African migrant workers abroad and how do we protect their rights. But before we go into that, we are going to talk about a few things we have been doing as the hosts. We have books which we hope that if you support us, they will support this work to continue. Books we have written and books we are going to be writing as co-authors with my friend Linda Tilly. But now, Dennis is going to be showing us a few books which you can go and buy. And when you buy them, be sure you are going to be supporting our work going forward because we need to do a lot of things and we don't charge anyone any money. Now, if you support these books, if you support our works and buy these books, as will be shown on the TV, you will be able to support our kind of work. We have books. The latest one is Mama Africa, which is a poetic conversation about Africa and which gives the history of Africa. And this history basically is not taught in schools. But if you get this poetry book, Mama Africa Tell You a Story, you'll be able to understand the history of Africa, basically the history of ancient Africa, which informs the present day Africa and also which predicts the future of Africa. Mama Africa, one of the books written by me, which is on Amazon. The other one, of course, is Modern Humanism, which talks about humanism today and how and why it's important. That's a book which is titled The God Business and the Death of Reason in Africa. If you get that book on Amazon today, you are going to know why Africa is behind every other continent, yet Africa is the most religious one in the world. We have the most religious people in the world, but yet we are the most backward. We don't know whether God wants poor people. We don't know whether God wants people in war. We don't know whether God wants these people, but there is a correlation which is brought out in that book, that the more religious people are, unfortunately, the more conflicted they are, and unfortunately, the more violent they become. Now, we want to go back to the root cause of this and examine what was Africa before the importation of these religions. Was Africa as violent as it is today? Look at the effect of Islam today in West Africa. Then there's that book, The Village Chief is a Cannibal, which talks about the politics in Africa, narrowing it down to the politics in Uganda, where we have leaders, dictators who behave like animals, barbaric animals that want to destroy everything in their way because they want to maintain power. That one book, The Village Chief is a Cannibal, is a great poetic conversation about Africa, where we have dictators ruining the future of people in Africa and the present as well. It's an important book. You need to get a copy and have a look at it. The next copy, which we should be looking at, is then its next screen should be Modern Humanism, which talks about humanism, tracing its history, of course, from Africa and to the world, the Ubuntu philosophy, and how it translates into developing Africa. There is that book, The Story of an Infidel, Song of an Infidel, and other poems, which again goes ahead to satirize religion as a theme and how religion basically takes us back, how religion has affected Africa. If you look at the problems of Africa today, partly are caused by our inability to process stuff, our inability to think things basing on religious lenses. Yet everyone in the world has moved on. You will never see people fighting religious wars in Europe today, but in Africa, we still have people fighting along those lines. From mental slavery to freedom is a personal memoir of yours truly about the journey we have taken to be where we are today. And it's an interesting journey into the life of the author of that book, who happens to be me. And as I said, when you buy a copy of those books, you are supporting our work. There is that important book called Stolen Legitimacy, which explains how Uganda transited from a banana republic that was in 1960s to a failed state that it is today. Today, I describe Uganda as a failed state in that book, and I give indicators of a failed state, and I justify why today that gentleman you see on that cover is the cause of Uganda being a failed state, and now he's planning to bring his son to also take over from him, having ruled us for the last 40 years. That gentleman, Museveni Kaguta, said that the problem of Africa are the leaders that don't leave power. That was his statement in 1986, and he promised what he called a fundamental change. Today, he has been in power for 40 years and counting, and Uganda has over 70% of its population below the poverty line, which means 70% of Ugandans cannot earn $1 a day. But that gentleman wants to rule for life, but also bring his son to continue the dynasty of dictatorship. And as I said, today we're going to be looking at migrant labor, people going away from their country. Uganda has thousands of young people educated with degrees going to Arab countries to become maids. Courtesy to Yoweri Museveni for his bad leadership. Because I Love This Land is a political conversation about us and about life. And the poem, Because I Love This Land, is actually a poem about Museveni and his government. When you look at it, Because I Love This Land is a poem about dictatorship of that very gentleman. Modern Humanism, as I've just said, is a book about humanism as a philosophy for life. It traces the history of humanism and gives it a present approach. How do we live humanism today? For example, is it still necessary to remain with the golden principle, or we go a step higher, the platinum principle, where now we don't want people to do things which are good for us, but they want to know what they want and do much better? Does humans mean that we must remain conference kind of humanism, theoretical kind of humanism, lecture theater kind of humanism, or we should take it to the people? Me and Linda and our team are taking humanism to the people right now. Humanism in Uganda is a book that gives the history of humanism in Uganda, and we justify the existence of the first historical registered humanist organization in Africa that was registered in 1996. That is the Uganda Humanist Association, which I am the chairperson right now. And that book gives the history of humanism in Uganda, but also how humanism in Uganda has clearly inspired humanism in Africa. One book that we're going to read and understand much more about humanism in Uganda, but also get a torch that lights humanism in Africa. The next book then I'm waiting for the next book. The next book should be Mama Africa Tell You a Story, which I talked about, a poetic conversation about Africa, and a book that is a history that is not properly taught in our schools. Yes, Mama Africa, that's the book. Mama Africa, Tell Your Story. And that book is unique because my friend, my sister Linda, has given it blessings of an African woman by writing a foreword, a very beautiful foreword, very powerful words. And believe you me, when you read it, you understand why Africa has a good history. And this history is not being taught in schools. It's not being taught in schools, and people grow without knowing their own history, but knowing much about Europe and USA and Japan and Asia, because that's our syllabus. They don't talk about Egyptian history. They don't talk about Nile Basin history. They don't talk about the Kushites. They don't talk about history that matters. They don't talk about our minerals and how we can use them to become rich. But they talk about Limpopo. I mean, they talk about things beyond. Talk about our valleys, our rivers, our lakes. Talk about things that matter to Africans. How do they use their nature? How do they preserve their soils? They don't teach these things in our schools. They teach us about Napoleon and the wars Napoleon fought. They teach us about Leopold. They teach us about Bismarck. They don't teach evolution. Now, that one book brings the history, the facts that are not taught in our schools today, and brings these issues to the fore so that children, people can read and understand much more about themselves and be able to know who they are, and then be able to form a vision that can usher them into a mission that can take them forward. Next book, Dennis and Brian, let us look at the next one book and then we shall go into our discussion. Next book on the screen, we have 10 books. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have briefly looked at the books we have. Basically, I'm saying that these books are put here for purpose that you support us. Go to Amazon, look for Kato Mukasa and look for these books. Please buy these books, because when you do buy these books, you are automatically going to be supporting the work we do here. You're going to be able to facilitate us. We need to get cameras. We need to get laptops. We need to facilitate our team to have enough credit on their phones to be able to have internet. We need to be able to have good cameras, be able to do research. So we need this kind of support from you. And one way to support us is through buying these books. Of course, with time, we shall also be making fundraisers, which can help us to do much better. We want to have a much better TV, online TV, a much better audience, and we want to market the works we do to even a larger and better audience. I want to thank you so much for being always with us. I want to thank you so much for the feedback you gave us. And ladies and gentlemen, let us right now go into the main theme for today, and that is the state of African immigrant workers abroad and how we protect their rights. As I said, I am co-hosting with my sister, Linda Tilly, and I'll be handing over to her to take us from here. Linda, over to you.
Thank you, Kato. Thanks. That's great hearing about all your new books. And I know that you've sacrificed a lot actually to bring your story to us and to write for us, because it's one of the reasons why you, from one of your books that you've had, are actually we have had to leave Uganda for now, because you would have been killed. You would, it's almost cost you your life, that book. So I think you're very, very brave and commendable for what you're doing. I know it's so hard, so much good work that you do with the humanist schools and in the humanist communities in Uganda. And not many people know, or people who don't know you or just started watching the show, that you have actually just this year had to flee your country that you love and that you were doing so much in, because of a book that you wrote. And people need to know that we live in countries in Africa where we can get killed or taken, abducted for writing the truth about things. We don't have free speech. And Kato was very lucky that he got out when he did, because if he didn't, he would have been taken and tortured, and he would have ended up being dead or being released, but in such a condition to send a message to any other writer out there or journalist or anyone doing anything on social media to be careful. So I think that's all the other writers. There's a lot of writers and activists from Uganda and all over Africa that are in exile, and most also, so many are missing across our continent. So many are being held in prisons without charges, without being ever seeing a date in court for years and years, sometimes just languishing there. So I just think that you did have a lucky escape, but you had to get out. And I do think that everything in life happens for a reason. And I think it's wonderful that you've now got this platform where you can speak freely, because you are actually going to be able to be a lot freer than you were in Uganda, and to be able to do things from outside until you can go back in again, which is what a lot of people are doing who are in exile, is raising awareness on the outside. So that's great. And just our topic today is about the displacement of African people that are fleeing to other continents because of the state of Africa. And going into exile like you did, it's the same as the people that are fleeing into the refugee camps outside your borders. It's the same as people that are looking for asylum in places like America, the UK, and Europe. And it's very much the same as people fleeing to places like the Middle East, because there is no hope for them in the country that they live in. There are no jobs, there's no food, there's no money, there's no hope, and you live in fear and terror all the time. And someone comes along with an opportunity for you to earn money in US dollars and to go to another country. It seems like an easy way out at the beginning. And this is just the whole thing, is that in so many different ways, people are exiting our continent. We are losing people. Those that stay behind are killed or imprisoned if they don't agree with the regimes. And the rest are living in poverty, living hand to mouth in hunger. So you don't have a strong, unified continent of people who are ready to stand up for their rights, because they are just living from day to day. And I just think that we have become aware of all the people in Uganda that are being trafficked and used in the Middle East. But going into the research of this, you find that it's actually been happening in the North Africa. It's huge amounts. I think how many people we think just from East Africa we know of. And we are not even a percentage in East Africa listed on any of the records. It's so minuscule. So you can imagine the actual number of people that are being trafficked to the Middle East. It is horrific, and it's African people. And I'm just, I'm glad that we've got someone from Nigeria tonight as a guest speaker, which is wonderful, because there's a lot happening there as well in West Africa. and with similar things, I think, in all our countries. And it's just trafficking, either going over there to work as domestic labor or to do menial jobs where you don't need skills like loading trucks and packing shelves and things. And then we also have the trafficking for the sex trade, trafficking of babies, trafficking of people for their organs. That's another thing that comes up in all the research as well, which we know about as well from Uganda. And none of us feel that our governments are doing enough about this problem. And that's why we decided to just get together tonight and speak to people in other countries, find a way that we can find solutions together as an African team representing different countries. Not just talking about all our problems and issues that we face with the trafficking, but actually saying, how are we going to make a difference? It's all well and good just talking about it and the shock horror aspect of it when people see these videos doing the rounds on social media. But we need to be proactive as well. And we need to say, there are a lot of us together from different countries. We've got all sorts of skills and things that between all of us and in all our countries that we can bring to the table. How are we going to solve this problem collectively as African people? Because we aren't happy with the way that our governments and our presidents are handling the problem. You see the trafficking numbers are increasing year on year, aside from all these special task forces and so-called things they've got in place in airports and that. It's not actually getting it's not lessening at all. There's more and more people that we're losing. And if that's going on for years and years and years, and the United Nations are supposedly on top of that, we need to know as African people that it's okay for us to stand up and say we're not happy with the way it's been done. We're not happy with the way the UN are handling the trafficking thing. They're not getting the results they should have after setting up their special units and things in 1998 or whenever it was. It's not acceptable to us. These are our people, and it's not acceptable. And we need to find other ways of overcoming this problem as a continent. So that's very much my way of thinking with this, which I'll cover later on during the show. Then we can discuss all those things that are actually going on and solutions, how we can come up with solutions for this. I know there's been a lot of trafficking going on to Oman, I think, from Liberia. Which we've also been hearing this week. And it's like with anything to do with human rights, once you start uncovering or exposing something, other people come forward and you start realizing where it's happening. I don't think it's any different to the slave trade, the 1800s. It is modern day slavery. Just because you're accepting a job and going over there and getting paid a salary doesn't mean that you're not being trafficked, because the conditions that people are being kept in are horrific. Passports are confiscated on arrival. Your work permit is tied to your employer. So you may not leave without your employer's permission. You may not get your passport back. So you're basically beholden to your employer, and they are keeping people in horrific conditions, making them work up to, I think, 22-hour days, some people, sleeping on floors with no proper bedding and having their phones confiscated as well. And I was just saying earlier this week, Hatu, I know to you that I see it as a slave trade. And like we used to have slave masters that used to sell our people to the British and the Portuguese and the Arabs. They used to bring people from in country to the edge, inside the continent, to the outer areas where all the ships and the slave markets were, and that. Our governments are the slave masters now, and we've got, unfortunately, lots of people who work for them that are aiding and abetting them with this. Just because we're not all being packed like sardines onto ships and kept in horrific conditions, we're going there in a nice aeroplane with food on board and entertainment. Just because we don't have chains to restrain us physically, we have our passports and phones taken from us, and it's slavery, just as it was all those years ago, except we don't think it is slavery because it's been packaged to us as being something completely different. It's your choice to go. You've got your passport, you've got your air ticket, you've got your phone, but you don't. And when you think human rights are a mess in Africa, UAE do not have human rights. I mean, they do not even have certain basic things written into their constitution. There are certain international human rights agreements they have just point blank refused to sign. And even the things that are in there to cover people's rights are not even worth the paper that they're written on. So it's a very, very dangerous. You need to know if you go to the UAE or any of those Middle Eastern countries, if something happens to you, there is no way that you can get help, really. United Nations, international people, they just block you out. So it's very, very, very important, I think, for us to start also raising awareness and educating our people about what's going on. So that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. And I think it's wonderful that we have got someone from Nigeria. Nigeria and Uganda are my two countries that I say they're my countries that I'm very involved with and have been for a few years now. And I just think it's so wonderful to see the Ugandans and the Nigerians coming together as they have been on the groups and that lately. It's like when you've got two really best friends and you want them to hook up. And Uganda and Nigeria have now hooked up and they're talking together because the similarities in both your countries are unbelievable. Nigeria is a lot further advanced than you are with that, but it's just incredible. And I just think it's so nice that we have an input and that we've got so many more countries joining us and joining in the discussions. And it's really, really good. So I think it's going to be an interesting chat tonight, everybody. We just hope that we have good reception and we can get everybody live streamed in on time. I'm not sure who we have first. I don't see anyone in the waiting area. Kato, who had we organized to have first on tonight?
Yes. Thanks so much for that very, very powerful introduction, Linda. As we wait for our guests, we just need to continue with this. Remember, you are a main speaker or a of research on this kind of work. So I will just invite you to continue until when our friends find their way inside here.
Sure.
I've been told that there's a problem of network. People are telling me right now in Uganda that the network is off. I've just got messages here which came a bit late that the network is a bit of a challenge. And because of that, we may not be able to wait for the guests. They may come in as we move forward. Linda, I want to thank you so much for this. And I want to add briefly that the challenge we have, I'm saying that I want to thank you so much for your discussion so far, for your background so far on the problem. And I'm saying that the network is bad, so we may not get our people on board on time. They may come in late, but despite of that, we are going to continue because you and me are ready for this talk show. And I'm just saying that you have done a good research on this. I've got good information on this. So you're going to continue discussing this as a matter of fact. I want to say, Linda, that you go ahead and then discuss. You go ahead and then present this issue. I'll be here to listen, and then I'll join in later as we wait for our colleagues to join us. Go ahead.
Sure, I'll do that. Thanks. I know that we're both always very prepared because we do know that sometimes with in other countries there's a problem with the internet and networks. So we've always got a full program planned with lots of information that we can fill in with for our guests. What I'll do is I will give my presentation and what I wanted to speak about tonight. And then if we do see one of them arrive on the set, I will then just we can stop talking and we can let them come in whenever they're available. That'll be fine, Kato. So for those of you that don't know, we've got a lot of recruitment agencies and advertisements and a lot of things on social media which are targeting African people for jobs in the Middle East. Now, these jobs are appealing to our people because obviously they are paid in a foreign currency, which converted back into a local African currency is a lot of money for people back home. There is a huge demand for unskilled labor. So you don't even have to really even if you don't speak English as a main language, or you don't have any education, or even post, graduate education or anything, you can go over as unskilled labor. For men, it's mostly jobs like packing vehicles, labor, physical labor and work. And the woman, of course, it's domestic work, a lot of domestic work. The thing is, unfortunately, and I mean, this is not, it's not a racist comment, but people from the Middle East, the Arab people, it's the same as the Chinese people. They are not known to be very kind to Black African people. I don't know what it is, but I mean, we've got this problem in China, in all our countries. And this is where it's so sad that we've got incidents like now in South Africa where South Africans call Nigerians and Zimbabweans and anyone in their country foreigners. But we do have a real problem with foreigners that are here that do treat our people despicably. Now, if they treat our people badly when they are here on African soil, you could imagine how they are treated when they are in their country, on their own territory. They are basically have complete control of them. And for some reason, they like to inflict mental and physical torture on our people. Even if they are feeding them and giving them a place to sleep, they still keep their passports and they still make them work long hours every day. They don't allow them to have enough time off. They don't give them days off. They don't give them time to speak to their families. They confiscate their phones. And I think the worst thing for me is they degrade them. They degrade and humiliate our people who are going over there to help them and do an honest day's work. And we are a very, very hardworking, innovative people. And we are used to working long hours and pulling our weight to do what we need to do work-wise. And I think this is just being exploited. If you look on the flip side of that, you've got people who they get to see a new country, and it's all very glamorous and exciting to begin with. I think once they get there and they start working, the reality of what's happening sets in. And if you step out of line, or you try and go back to the employment agency or the embassy or someone for help, that is when you are mostly, in most instances we've seen, killed in horrific ways. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of these videos that have been filmed. And I also wonder, because I know we have a lot of torture and death videos filmed in Africa that are released to us as warnings, because they try and threaten and intimidate us with those. But I cannot understand why they would be doing it in the Middle East, because they don't want to send a message to us. Because they want our people there to work for them as slaves. It's just that they've got some sadistic pleasure out of the torture that they give, especially to women. And this is the thing again with dehumanizing a person. These are people. This is someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's aunt, a valuable member of a family unit, of a community. And it's absolutely devastating the families back here. And I'm just speaking for Uganda, but I know it's happening everywhere, because I'm obviously in touch with Uganda more, and I've seen the videos, and I've spoken to people who've been about to go over or have been over. And I just think that people need to be aware. We need to start raising awareness. People have said to me, but Linda, what else must I do? You can't go to the refugee camps because they are concentration camps. We'll starve, we'll die there. Our children won't get an education. What do? We've got an opportunity to go and earn in dollars and send money home to our family every month. My children can carry on going to school. You can carry on paying rent and have food on the table. But at what cost? And I just say to people, no matter how bad things are, there's nothing worse than having all those hardships and more in a country that isn't your own country, where people don't speak your language, where you don't have help. In Africa, as tough as it is, it's never going to be a walk in the park for any of us. Everything that we're going through, especially in countries now like Nigeria and Uganda and DRC and Sierra Leone and all the others. But we've got to know that we are still better off, even if you've got nothing and no job and no hope. At least you've got each other, and you're in your country, and there's always someone that you know, and always someone that can help you. If not with food and money and a job, just with emotional support, somebody that you can talk to, somebody that understands you. And I would say, if you're going to rather die of starvation, as awful as it is. Rather do it on your own home soil than in a strange country where you never get to see your family again or anything, as awful as it is. I don't think it's right that our people should be in this situation where they feel they have to go overseas to get work. Why there aren't other African countries that can help them out of this situation, why those countries are in the predicament they're in to begin with. But then this all comes down to everything that's happening on our continent at the moment. And this is just what's happening. We had an incident 2 weeks ago that prompted us to do the show tonight, with one of many that have been coming through. This one was particularly gruesome, and a lot of them have been from hidden cameras that have been set up by staff that are working as domestic workers or whatever to record what's happening to them. It's just awful. And that did the rounds, and people really became aware. This lady, I think, had asked for she was owed 2 months' salary or something. And she went to the employment agency and she was asking about it. I think that's the story that I heard. I don't know if I haven't checked sources, but something along those lines. Or she went to get her passport back or something. And then when they say they found money on her that she'd stolen on her person or in her luggage, and that's why they did what they did to her, which we know is a lie, because, why would you be so desperate to get money if you had that much money on you? And there's no ways that people steal, especially in a foreign country. You don't. It's like the non-citizens in South Africa that are being accused of all the crime and that. There's no ways you're going to flee a country like Nigeria or Uganda, where your whole family are being slaughtered in front of you or taken from you, and you've got a job in a place like South Africa. There's no ways you're going to break the law and be deported back to your home country. There's good and bad people in every country, and we can't always judge every country on the worst of those people. So I'm just saying is that it's something that we need to really raise awareness for. I think it helps if we can just talk in our communities and on our groups and put things out on social media about what's happening over there. A lot of people say, but I'll be fine. I'm only going to be a domestic worker or whatever. I'm sure there are incidences where things are fine, but why take a risk? It's happening more to a majority of people than it is. We're hearing about it more and more often, and it's getting worse. If they are fed a constant supply of people from the African continent, they're going to keep on doing that. And they've got a huge trade going on. If you look at the figures about people being trafficked to the Middle East, we've got huge numbers of African people that are being trafficked over there on a yearly basis, that are actually being trafficked. Younger people who are being told they're being given opportunities to go to school or to get a sponsorship for a secondary an education after they finished school. They then end up arriving and realizing that that's not the reason they're there at all. And from the Middle East, they're trafficked on maybe to other countries, in Europe and that. And you have people that are always offered a job in their profession, even like teachers. And it's not just the unskilled, uneducated people that are getting hoodwinked by this. It's the educated people as well that are. And the fact that the employment agencies are allowed to operate. I don't know how many countries actually have physical locations. I know that in Uganda, I believe there is one in, I think it's in Kampala. You can correct me, Kata. We should not be allowing encouraging people to do this. And I'd like to know, how are those employment agencies vetted? What about the embassies that are giving visas out as well? I know for a fact, from assisting people fleeing countries like Uganda to places of safety in Africa, because I don't believe that our people should have to flee to foreign countries, how difficult it is to get a visa, for starters, even a holiday visa for someone from Uganda or Nigeria to come and visit you, let alone a work permit or an asylum permit. It's very, very, very difficult. So I'd like to know how hundreds and thousands of people in countries like Uganda are just getting passports and permits like that to go to the UAE. Sorry. Sorry, Kata. It's just, I know how difficult the passport and visa system is in all these countries, but yet somehow they are being fast-tracked for UAE, and that's not right. It's obviously, I don't know, who's checking the visas? Who's actually going through and checking how many are being issued each year? Why they're being issued? How many people are returning on the visas, or getting extensions on their visas, or never going back there again? It needs to be a multifaceted approach. Sorry. So we really need to, sorry, because I've had a bit of a chest infection this week, and talking is like, I'm just bringing it back on. So we now have, I'm just talking about East Africa, because East Africa, even for those that have been trafficked from North and West Africa, the largest amount of trafficked victims are exiting through East Africa, exiting the continent through Mombasa, which is a coastal town in Kenya, which just it just smacks again of slave trade, when, you know, people would move from the coastal areas on ships and that, and Mombasa being a port. But they are being moved. I don't know if it's all by air or also by ship. It's so easy to move people and smuggle people nowadays on cargo ships and things like that. I would imagine Mombasa, because of the coastal, as well as, you know, there's probably a lot of people that are leaving on ships. And sadly, there has been, there are Ugandans and Kenyans that are implicated in this. But then there are also, you know, there are also people, Ugandans and Kenyan people, who are fighting against this and trying to stop it. So here again, we have people who are being allowed to do this and get away with it. We have different issues that we have to address here, because we've got the employment agencies that are actually setting up base in our countries, or it's the agencies that are advertising and getting contacting people on social media, where there's obviously no control over that. What is included in the adverts, whether they are a registered affiliated employment agency, are they registered to deal with expatriate employment and with work permits and visas and migration issues and things. We've got that. Then we've got our embassies and consulates that are issuing visas for allowing the movement of people. Most people in Africa, we don't have birth certificates, because births are not in hospitals, or parents are not registered on systems and that, so children don't have birth certificates. Very few people have passports. There's never been a need for passports. Some of our countries you can still move freely between without passports. So to get a passport and the cost of that, and then of course to get a visa so suddenly, we need to also look at that. There has to be controls on the passport offices, and with visas as well, as to how many visas are allowed to be issued per, I don't know, per month or per year or whatever. Affiliated employment agencies have to be involved with this. And then we also need to have firmer checks at all our exit ports, and a way of checking up on people once they're there. Hello, Star. Sorry, she has to make an entrance every show we do. I don't know what it is. So it looks to me, from the research that I did, is that there's one organization that is in control of trying to put a stop to human trafficking off the African continent. This is the United Nations. The United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. And they have actually set up a head office, a headquarters in Nairobi, where it's not just this, it's lots of other things that they handle. And they set up an office there in, I think it was 1998, I read. And I'm very surprised. I mean, I'm aware of the United Nations in Nairobi, but I didn't realize that this was their big office. 1988. Okay, 1988, they started an office specifically dealing with human trafficking, with the trafficking of, at that stage, North African, Sub-Saharan Africa, and then East Africa. And they have a base in East Africa and also a base in North Africa, because it's so bad in both those areas. Now, I just want to know, what is the United Nations doing since 1988? Because when I look at the facts and figures, aside from COVID, when we were all on lockdowns and things slowed down a bit, which I'm sure there were still people being trafficked in because they would have just found other ways to move them. What has United Nations been doing since 1988 really to make a huge dent in trafficking on our continent? Kato, I don't know about you, but in none of the countries that I'm aware of or involved with or know people in, I'm not aware of any campaigns that have been done in our schools. Especially, I see all these programs for women's rights, women's this, women's everything. Do we have programs for our women on trafficking, on what to look out for, what to avoid? Because the highest number of people being trafficked are women, followed by girls. Thirdly, it's men, and then fourthly, it's little boys. The highest percentage is women and female children. It's our women that they're taking mostly. We don't have any programs that I'm aware of, and correct me if I'm wrong, where we are raising awareness with women from school-going age about what trafficking is all about and about the ways that you can be hoodwinked into doing it, and that going to work as a domestic worker is just as bad in countries like these. If we stop supplying the Middle East with a constant supply of labor, they're going to have to look somewhere else. And I'm sorry to say that because it's horrific. And I know there's a lot of Asians and people there that are being trafficked. But we need to take care of our own continent, and everyone else needs to look after theirs first before we can start helping other people. So I'm just saying, okay, and I see that we have hatched through here. We have a feed from Uganda. Good evening. Let's see if we can have I'm not sure if you can hear us or not. So we'll just see. Good evening, Kai, can you hear us?
Are you guys talking to me?
Good evening, yes, we're saying good evening to you.
Good evening, how are you, colleagues?
Wonderful, welcome back. It's good to have you back on the show this evening.
Thank you, thank you. I want to apologize. I had some issues dealing with finishing up the papers. I was running around and about.
It's no problem. We've been filling in, and we've been filling in the viewers on exactly what's happening with the trafficking in Uganda, and just giving them an overview. And we thought we would just talk until you were available. So that's wonderful. I'm just waiting for Kato. Kato, can you hear us? Kato's gone off now. I'll just wait for him to come back. So we've just been filling the people in on exactly what's been happening and focusing on. Are you there? Okay. Kato's okay. We'll wait for Kato to come back on again. Okay, Kato, let me. I think I'm still live, so I'll just continue here. We were just filling people in, or anyone who's just joined the show now, on the issues that we have with our people that are going over to the Middle East for jobs and for work opportunities, and finding out that when they get there, they are having their passports taken away and are being treated like animals, worse than animals, being made to work long hours and do horrific work. And if they speak up, well, they have their passports confiscated and their phones confiscated, most of them. And if they speak up for themselves, they actually, they are getting killed and abused. And we were also talking about the human trafficking that's happening, where people are actually being moved and smuggled through ports, and the number, how it's increasing each year. The United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime is the organization that is supposedly helping with this problem and trying to counteract it. They're working with Interpol with things in the airports and that. But I was just saying to Kato before you joined us that they formed this office in a permanent base for this in Nairobi in 1988. The fact that trafficking is increasing year upon year, and it's affecting more and more of our countries now, is most concerning with the work that the United Nations are doing. They're obviously not getting it right or making a huge impact. So we need to find out how we as individual countries can help them and assist them with this issue. Because I was just saying to Kato, we've had so many awareness programs for women around Africa for women's rights and empowerment and FGM and menstrual health and all that. I'm not aware of any campaigns and programs we have for our women warning them of the dangers of trafficking and what to look out for and how to be aware of what they could possibly be getting themselves into. That's one of the issues that we were just addressing, is that I'm not sure that there are awareness campaigns for our women.
Yes.
Are you
Linda,
back, Kato?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my sister Linda. Thank you so much, my brother Kanso Baguma. You are most welcome. I've just been reading through your paper, which you shared a few minutes ago on our platform. So my eyes were glued on your paper as Linda was presenting. I was actually reading your paper and listening to my sister Linda. I have to say you have a very good, well-packaged paper, and on the subject, Linda has been doing justice, giving a background, making an analysis of the situation of migrant labor, and she has done really a great job giving us that benchmarking. Now, Mr. Baguma, Kanso Baguma, is a lawyer, a human rights activist in Uganda, and a seasoned human rights defender I've known for the last close to 15 years. And I have a lot of respect for his work. So I want to welcome you officially again to the platform. Welcome to Court Activism Africa. And please, Mr. Baguma, Kanso Baguma, the platform is yours now.
Thank you, Council Kato, for that introduction. I'm trying to learn for the first time. I hope I succeed, that I should be able to share the paper. I don't know how these things are done. Is there a way, Council, you can share that document for people to follow?
Yeah, what you can do, okay, I'm going to tell Dennis and I'm going to tell Brian to do that, but please continue reading as we did the other time, as they try to figure out how to share it. Okay. They are the admins, and I'm not. So please go ahead and take us through as they try to figure out how to present it.
Okay. You'll be a little bit patient with me as I try to pick it up. Where is the document? Yes, it is here. I've seen it. It is opening. Very good. Yes.
Excellent. And Kato, we're going to make these documents available online on the Facebook page. I know there's been a lot of discussion on the group this week as well.
Yes.
Because I think Council Baguma has got some wonderful ideas and that would work for not just Uganda, but for Africa. I mean, this is the wonderful thing when we all get together and we put our thinking caps on, is we've got such an amazing array of different skills that we all bring to the table with issues like these. And from a legal perspective, clear solutions and ways out of problems, which is wonderful for us all to learn from and take something from at the end of the day. Because we do have a lot of very antiquated laws and things in our constitutions and in our governments and our legal systems that we do need to update to go. I know a lot of our laws that are in place are left over from colonial terrorism days when the colonialists ruled the continent, and we still carry them today in our legal systems. So it's really interesting to hear all the new issues that we don't even think about as well, like last week when we discussed with the transport issues and issues with trucks and things, how it all impacts on our human rights and our quality of life at the end of the day. So that's very interesting. So we'll just see. I'm just filling here and talking and until Council Baguma has got his documents. I know it's a problem with internet is slow. Are you ready for us? Great.
Yes, I'm ready, Linda. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
I was waiting for your comments.
No problem. I'll talk all night. You have to stop me.
Council, continue. Council Baguma, continue, please.
Continue.
Let me start where Linda. Let me start where Linda is ending from. I'm sure she has given a very good overview about the state of migrant workers in Africa and specifically to Uganda. Maybe I should talk about the last statement she made about outdated colonial laws. In Uganda, every 10 years, we have an enactment of a law to have the laws reviewed. So the last law review was in 2000, which was the Law Revision Act of 2000, which reviewed all our laws and updated them and gave them chapter numbers. The most recent Law Revision Act is that of 2020. We envisage that the Uganda Law Reform Commission, under its mandate, is indeed going to update most of these laws. As you've seen, I've put a lot of labor laws in the paper, but
Yes.
some of those provisions of certain laws have been repealed. Others have been overtaken by events, by the decisions of the Supreme Court. Others the international law. So we expect that under review, there will be a lot of work for people involved in labor law to update the laws to the present. I also want to state that I've been challenged in this week. We've been doing a monitoring and evaluation for human rights, climate change, and environmental compliance by infrastructure developers under the NDP3, which is our third national development plan. So we've been flying from one place to another because of the distances and the workload that we have.
Yes.
I will start with the state of infrastructure at the aerodromes around the country is terrible.
Really?
I remember I even captured a video on the landing at Kasese Airfield. Place was flooded, and the tires were skidding, and I was laughing with the pilot about the state of our things. So basically, what I'm saying is that human rights is really broad. This area of human rights that we are discussing today is very important, because without a livelihood, we cannot eat and drink. I know my senior will say I should not talk about the Bible, but the Bible tells me that if I do not work, I should not eat.
No, Councillor, I have no problem with their Bible. Go ahead. Don't take it a preaching.
Okay, Councillor. My discussion colleagues today on this paper, I find it very controversial. It's a mixed bag of opportunities and threats, as I've indicated in this paper. To some, it brings wealth. To others, it brings death to their doorstep. It's also interesting of Uganda. When you talk of a migrant worker being abroad, it means different things to very many people. It means that you're out of Uganda's boundaries. For others, mean that you are in a far distant country. But if you are from the neighborhood, people don't think that you are abroad. And explanations for that, I picked up a few. That if you are in the neighborhood, they think it's not worth mentioning that you are really out because you are in the backyard of the country. Even when you are within Africa, they do not find it glamorous. The exception I mentioned was South Africa. So if you're in Africa and you said, okay, you're in South Africa, people start understanding and appreciating that you are abroad. But again, over the years, Ugandans have assumed a bad reputation in South Africa. We are looked at as sangomas or witch doctors or local medicine people, because people go there and pretend that they are, and they start making money. Some of those boys, my brother Kato knows, they are show-offs here. When they come, they throw them at everyone. So that is the context of being abroad. But I also want to note that Uganda is known for exporting a lot of doctors and nurses to South Africa. So it's not all lost on our reputation. Now, the treatment of migrant workers abroad. We know that the diaspora of Ugandans who are working abroad are domestic workers and those in construction, driving, deliveries, then cleaning, and of course, sex workers based in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, Dubai, Kuwait, and other Mid Eastern countries. If you read the testimonies of these workers in published stories, you really see that they are sending appeals to people to help them. They are being tortured, they are suffering. Others have been killed and the bodies repatriated home here at airports. They are receiving them on the daily. So it is a confusing state of affairs. Now, the migrant workers in European capitals, those ones are worshipped, I note. My brother Kato, who is in London, I'm sure when he's coming, if he had not come from an elite family, there would be an entire clan, including the chief of the village, welcoming him. Because the man is coming from Europe. So that's when they consider that you've been abroad. So I conclude by saying that the educated Western-based African migrant worker is really well established, and one who is in the West but not educated, even when their labor rights are secured and respected, I know they hustle hard because they have bills to pay, and they're in that continuous rat race. They have to work on the daily to be able to sustain themselves and their families. I looked at the origin of the Middle East by our workers who are migrating there as mainly to be those of poverty, then the cultural shock that they meet when they go to the Middle East. It is unheard of that I find a man like Bagumam in the Middle East and then someone is treating me like disdain. I would not hold that for even a day. And then you have the definition of who a migrant worker is. We have an instrument here, which I've referenced. The rule 1 and sub-rule 29 of the rules and regulations governing recruitment and employment of Ugandan migrants. They define a migrant worker. As a citizen of Uganda who is to be engaged or has been engaged in remunerated activity in a state of employment. That it is not in our national interest to have African citizens become migrant workers abroad. There is no way one would want to live the good weather of Uganda, our variety of foods, and our lazy lifestyle to go and hustle for 18 hours, 20 hours abroad. If there was a way, everyone would want to stay here. So basically, I note that it's not in our national interest. I'm also excited to add that I have doubts if there is anyone who can answer this question in the affirmative, and I cannot attempt to answer this question. But we have a law on the national interest in Uganda, which you are familiar with, those of you who read the paper, which provides that Uganda shall be governed based on the principle of national interest and good and common good, enshrined in the national objectives and directive principles of state policy. I recognize that Parliament has made relevant laws of giving full effect to that clause of the law, which is understood that every time Parliament enacts a law, the national interest is embedded in there. It's a view that has been contested, but that's another matter for another day. The legal and regulatory framework applying to Uganda on labor is very extensive and robust, both from the national, regional, and international perspective. I cited a few, which is the Constitution. Here, I cite these from our sources of Ugandan law, which look at the Constitution, legislation. The legislation I named the Employment Act, the Labor Unions Act, the Labor Disputes Arbitration and Settlement Act, which provides for resolution of labor disputes. I noted the Occupation and Safety and Health Act, which looks at which replaces the repealed Factories Act and providing for working conditions of the workplace. The Workers' Compensation Act, providing for regulation and manner in which compensation of workers is conducted, and for possible injuries and diseases that can be sustained or acquired during course of employment. The National Social Security Fund, which was amended about last year, which obliges employers to deduct 5% of employees' salary and make 10% contribution towards the employees' savings. The Pensions Act, providing for pension of civil servants. The Local Government Act, providing for pension of all the civil servants. Public Service Standing Orders. The Whistleblowers Protection Act. The Minimum Wages Advisory Board and Wages Council Act. There was an instrument that was in the draft, which they are trying to call the minimum wage legislation. It provided for a minimum wage of, I think, 230,000 for the lowest paid employee, bringing that in the margin of about $60, $70, just about there. But there's been a contention between institutions of labor, the unions, the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Affairs, and the Ministry of Finance that is handling the disbursement of funds, especially for civil servants. I note that it's important to peruse the law as applies to labor in Uganda, extracted from the Constitution, since the Constitution is taken to be the supreme law of Uganda and having binding authority on everyone, including agencies and institutions. Article 25 of the Constitution provides for the protection from slavery, servitude, and forced labor, that no person in clause 1, no person shall be held in slavery or servitude. In clause 2 of 25, no person shall be required to perform forced labor. The third clause, for the purpose of this article, forced labor does not include A, any labor required in the consequence of a sentence or order of court, B, any labor required which, though not required in consequence of the sentence of court of order, the order of a court, is reasonably necessary in the interest of hygiene as far as maintenance of place at work, which a person, this mainly is a provision for prisoners, or maybe those who are being detained at police stations when they are required to do some work for cleaning purposes or other. Any labor required of a member of a disciplined force, like the soldiers and the prison officers and others. Then any labor required during the period when Uganda is at war. That is paragraph B. Then paragraph E, any labor required, reasonably required as part of a reasonable and normal communal or other civic obligation. So I cite the causes of labor immigration and the contributing factors to the suffering of migrant workers abroad. The domestic high rates of poverty among the youth, the high rates of exclusion, deprivation, and marginalization among the youth, on most of the fundamental rights, including water, energy, education, housing, participation in government affairs and leadership and governance, healthcare, access to land, access to justice, access to legal services, lack of voice and accountability, and many others. So this is with the view that they get to improve their earnings, and they're able to change their circumstances that have kept them in the aforementioned state of affairs. And note the high rates of illiteracy and the semi-illiterate community among our people. Because then, if I know in Oman, Uganda are being mistreated, in Saudi Arabia they're being killed, why would I board a plane to go and earn $600,000 Uganda shillings? That is about 70 riyals of the Oman currency, which since is about to $150 about there. Why would anyone risk leaving their country to go money with the dangers that are really apparent? So illiteracy is one of the causes I quote. Then the traditional workers, normally they turn offensive, and the lawyers here will know that they have potentially become hostile witnesses, even in their own matters, to their own detriment. I cite two examples here. About last week, I was working on, this young lady, as I was exchanging, sent me a video when she was being tortured, and I tried to do what I have to do. I wrote a letter to the cabinet secretary through the minister for the presidency, or for onward communication to the president, that we have had enough of this. We need action now from him. And then the young lady, it tells me I'm moving too fast, and yet she acknowledges she ran away from the employer's house. She went to a police station in Saudi Arabia. Police station sent her back to the agency. The agency took her back to the employer who was torturing her, and they locked her down in the basement. And 3 days she was in that basement, and she was calling for my help. That now, when I act so that we get a bilateral intervention, and she says I'm moving too fast. That
Now,
kind of
how could she be helped? How could she be helped when she's even fearing you are moving very fast?
And she had given
danger. Why was she panicking?
This is the point, my senior. So there is that traditional problem of our migrant workers. Yet indeed, she had even given me contacts of the people torturing her. She had given me contacts of her family. I asked her to take photographs of the environment in which she is, and whatever documents she can land on, so there were companies and names of business cards. But that's our people. Then also named the conflicted families position, because they look to these people as a source of income. So when you're trying to help their own abroad, they look at you as the enemy, because then if their person returns, then they have no earnings. So in this particular instance, the brother called me and said I should leave the matter because the police, the employer, and the girl agreed on the arrangement. So as this guy did the arrangement, include getting the 3 days in a basement building. So we have those challenges. Then a government bent on expanding the frontiers of external mobilization to the extent that Uganda wants forex income, that is foreign exchange income, and the externalization of labor will increase the remittance. And indeed it has, because the statistics show that the remittances from Uganda, 50% of all the remittances that abroad, which is estimated to be about, I think, annually dollars. That is something, because the Middle East is taken to contribute $600 million US at effect. So as that as a policy, it is stalemate, inability to offer consular services to workers, traffickers, violation of the rights of workers, immoral behaviors by Ugandans, in occasion domestic violence, workers who abscond from their station, other jobs, limited manpower, and exploitation unit. It has only about 5 members. Imagine an entire unit handling exploitation of labor, 5 full staff, and yet thousands are going abroad every other month. And the lack of appropriate office accommodation, lack of diplomatic representation in Kuwait and Oman, manpower to Ugandan missions in India, and traffickers who often post representation deploy workers in working conditions. Then the pull factors, namely better pay, then estimated annual, which I've already talked about, that attraction of the money. And then that I extracted it, because I made reference in number 16, I extracted it from ministerial policy statement by the Minister of Labour, Gender and Social Affairs, which he presented to Parliament on a certain date, which I name in the documents you'll find there. Then I start on the interventions by the international community and the Saudi Arabian government, cited as a leader in human rights abuses by the Ugandan migrant workers. Here, I wanted only to dwell on Saudi Arabia, because it has become a poster boy for of Ugandan migrant workers and killing. But before tackling that, I talked about a recent meeting this year between 28th and 8th April, because I'm talking about the contribution of the international community. Paraguay between 28th and 8th March. 28th March. I will beg colleagues that you amend that document. It's supposed to be 28th March to 8th April of 2022. The 484th meeting, the first session of the committee workers had a dialogue on the committee on the rights of all migrant workers and members of their families, which is a board of independent experts that protect the rights of millions of workers. And I noted in this review, in Africa, they only touched Burkina Faso. So they did not touch on the Gulf country. It was one of the countries that viewed under his work. Saudi Arabia, being a state that portrays torture, killings, organ harvesting, rape, migrant female workers. There are two instruments, namely the Forced Labor Convention of 1939. Saudi Arabia.
Council Maguma, if you can hear me, Femina.
Yes, I can hear you, Council.
You are breaking a bit. And there is a background bit of feedback, echo. Maybe there's a TV or radio somewhere.
Maybe my phone.
There's a background echo giving a feedback as you speak. Otherwise, I can hear you, though there's that echo and that a bit of breaking. If you have two phones, maybe one phone may be off. But now continue, please. We were clear, but we are losing you a bit.
Might be the network.
If there's no TV, no radio, no other phone.
Let me have this phone far from me.
Yeah, because it may be competing with the main one. Yes. Otherwise, thanks so much, Mr. Baguma, for that.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please come back.
Okay. Is the echo still there?
No.
No. It sounds like it's gone now.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Council, please continue, but be mindful. Council, be mindful. You have 10 minutes left for you, Council. 10 minutes left for you.
Is there a possibility that there is an echo coming from there somewhere?
No, you are clear, Council. Continue.
It's fine now. It's perfect. Your sound is great again.
Your sound is great.
Okay, thank you. Let me run through very fast that there are two instruments that Saudi Arabia ratified. One on Forced Labor Convention 1930, number 29. The other is the Forced Labor Convention of 1930. They were reviewed, and the International Labor Committee in June 2020 of this year, during the 338th session, reviewed them and made some measures that were adopted by the Saudi government to the effect that they should improve the state of migrant workers. This was under the Convention on protection of migrant workers and their families. I have reproduced what they require of the Saudi government for purposes of giving opportunity to our colleagues, the non-lawyers, to learn about some of these details, because I know Linda and my senior Kato know where to find this. A number of good measures. Through those measures, colleagues, you will wonder why torture is still going on if Saudi Arabia was taken through this exercise about 2020. We believe by now there would be nothing of the sort that we should be hearing coming from Saudi Arabia if they implemented the committee's review. I cited a few government measures, including the interministerial committee chaired by the minister, between ministries, labor, internal security organization, the operation police at the airports, and others. and the offenses registered under that law, 2,334 victims of human trafficking were rescued at Entebbe International Airport between January and June 2019. A four-party employment contract involving the two governments, the agency plus the worker, 3 bilateral agreements with the government of Uganda, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the cooperation was strengthened in the East African community. The number of task forces were set up, and over 300 victims were rescued at Kenyatta International Airport in Kenya. Monitoring visits done by the government, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and Jordan. Foreign recruitment companies have to be appointed by the Ministry of Sport. All demand letters and powers of foreign recruitment agencies in Uganda had to be vetted by to prospective countries. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Council.
Yeah, every prospective employment contract for domestic workers had to be authenticated by Uganda's mission accredited abroad. The foreign recruitment companies are not allowed at the responsibility of the domestic workers as individuals. Then the Uganda Association of these agencies that take people abroad also created an agency and established a fund. That's the Association of External Recruitment Agencies, a fund to help with the operations of the airport and in the recipient countries, and also to provide legal and victims when they return. The ministry has been to the public service seeking approval for expansion of staffing at the Department of Employment Services. At the ministry, the minister has polygamins as in the means of financing our ministry, and that arising out of bilateral agreements, the countries have also taken the following. Jordan, on its part, has tackling a number of them. You will see them Saudi as well, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia. Then the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs also advise Ugandans who are in to run to neighboring countries where Uganda has a diplomatic mission. The coordinator of anti-human trafficking of internal affairs also advises on a number of measures. A ministerial policy statement by the minister. In addition, mentioned policy statements made on 20th November 2017 and on 18th of 2017 to the Committee on Parliamentary Rights, to Parliament's Affairs Committee, to the Foreign Affairs Committee, and Labour Committee. Protection of workers through licensing and placement procedures. Also, there was an attempt to make the ban migrant workers. They do not go into the hostile communities and countries. To also allow government to strengthen together them up. But the ministry cites that it became a backlash as that measure of banning by several polls that 1,000 Ugandans at the time when the petition was made, 40,000 had already gone to Oman in spite of that. So the effects of migrant labor, migrant workers abroad, are extended to legal services, lack of justice, lack of access and mechanisms. The mentality of most countries in this pain. Some have lost their hard-earned surplus relatives. Loss of pride and dignity, families, loss of freedom and violence leading to loss of limbs, trauma, death, and suicide. A lot of documented cases. A link. I encourage everyone to go to that link and you get a typical story of what happens with Ugandans from our daily media. And read a lot of stories. I cite 3 benefits of migrant workers, which are obvious: income, acquisition of basics, and the remittances. make recommendations. One, that we use the Committee on the Rights of Migrant Workers and their families, which under the Convention, Human Rights Monitoring Mechanism under the treaty, including the Human Rights Council, the procedures, the Universal Periodic Review, independent investigations by these expert bodies of human rights. There are 10 of them. But now that we have a committee of workers, we could refer matters. I also noted building areas where Uganda has agriculture, into talent. We can educate our people, making them aware of the dangers of going to the Middle East, deploying the literate community in the government working places and in the private sector. If they can stay there for 3 years, they can be ethics and probably manage this. Then the method of use is not helping, because if you come from Uganda, you will note that they can make it in politics. Then those of us marginalized, we educate our children for jobs beyond our border. We have opportunities for strategic and practical investigation of these matters, and the prosecution of the elite gangs in the private sector who are perpetuating this affairs. A name and shame campaign to isolate the individuals and companies responsible. I conclude by saying that the measures and the mechanisms provided by the international community, migrant workers, puts the problem at the doorsteps of migrant workers. The migrant workers themselves, their testimonies, they allege failure on the part of government. And then the companies importing and exporting never claim to be in compliance with the law. The international committee on its part claims the international organization to have done their part. Their committees of the treaty body and the convention of the rights of migrant workers and their families have reviewed Saudi Arabia, which I verbatim, and agreed on several interventions. And they said since 2020, Saudi Arabia implemented laws would not be having the present problem. And I conclude that it is my land opinion that we need to establish a human rights mitigation plan on this forum, to have it deployed for purposes of justice and reparation to make workers both surviving and the dead. And then the writing community, this forum, like my senior Kato was published so many books, would help to compile a compendium of these testimonies so that there is a permanent record of these again and women who sustain the kind of evil enterprise that we are seeing in the respective institutions. So I thanked all members of the forum and signed off with my names and my contact. I thank you, my seniors and colleagues.
Council, I want to thank you so much. Council, I want to thank you so much 1,000 times for this very appetizing, very educative. I was smiling because you were giving knowledge. It was justice done. I've enjoyed every bit of it. It is sad, but well researched. Thank you so much, Council. I've learned quite a number of things from your presentation, and I have to promise you that I'm going to capture the information you have given, and I assure you, none of my writings, your information will come out, and actually I'll give credit to you for having researched this. It was very good. I'm writing a piece on Africa, but it's on economy and migrant workers. Our what we call externalization of labor is one of the small chapters in my workings. So I'm going to give this piece of paper you have written a big space in my forthcoming work, and of course I will give credit to you for having researched this very wonderful piece. It was very informative, especially because you gave the legal background of labor externalization in Uganda and to an extension in Africa. You talked about the laws in place. You talked about the governments where these young people go to work and the agreements that should be in place or that are in place. But the question is, why do we see these agreements, these understandings not being followed? The other thing which I observed in my research is that not all these Arab countries actually have an understanding with Uganda, for example, have an understanding with Nigeria, for example. We have only a few Arab countries where we have agreements, if I can call them like that, about labor externalization. Some other countries, people go there without any arrangement between government and government, such that if there's a problem, this person cannot be helped because there's no bilateral trade affair. There's no bilateral understanding between Uganda, between Nigeria, and say Oman, and say Qatar, and say Saudi Arabia. Now, once the two governments don't have a cooperation, once the two governments don't have a clear understanding of how to handle migrant workers, then it becomes hard, even if you have an embassy there. For example, there are countries where Uganda doesn't have an embassy, where Uganda is not represented at all. Where if this girl had a problem, she may go to police of that country, and because the police of that country follows the Islamic law, and in most cases these girls are flamed, lies are told about them, that they are broken the Sharia law, or they are broken the law of the land, and then they are mistreated. And then there have been cases where we have seen government officials go there to simply lament. They come back. There have been instances where members of parliament have gone to Saudi Arabia, have gone to Oman, have gone to Qatar, have gone to these other countries, and they have come back with reports. There is a time I wrote a document fully explaining how the parliament of Uganda had become a total disaster. A friend of mine, who is an MP for labor, for workers, called Rakajala, is my friend, is my OB from the same policy leadership program where the Germans trained us about 15 years ago. So the MP of workers in Uganda is my OB from that angle, Rakajala, Alinaitwe. Now, I tasked Alinaitwe to present a paper or a policy or a program or a complaint on the floor of parliament. That was 5 years ago. And he did so. He presented a paper complaining about our girls being mistreated abroad. But I can assure you, up to now, whatever Kajala presented still remains on the shelves, gathering dust at Parliament. Nothing was done. The challenge, Mr. Maguma and viewers and listeners, is that the people taking our boys and girls abroad are people working with the government. The people owning these companies. We have over 100 labor exporting companies in Uganda. Over 100, Mr. Maguma, as you have pointed out. Now, when you look at these companies, having a license to take people abroad is not a one-day thing. Actually, it involves so many agencies, including Interpol, including the police of Uganda, including CID, including the ministry. 2 ministries are involved. Now, the question is, how come that we have so many organizations, so many fully registered companies taking our girls abroad and cannot follow up? The other challenge we have in Uganda and in Africa is the issue of Human Trafficking Council. Some girls and boys go abroad without following the proper procedures. Underground agents take them abroad. The other challenge which we raised, which is a fact, is the issue of how they are treated when they reach there. That even if you had a better law in Uganda, it's municipal. It's municipal. It may not be international. It may not be regional. It may not be binding. Now, when you take a girl from Uganda, a so-called Christian state, where there are so many Christians, secular people, to a country governed under Islamic law, and this girl must wear a veil from top to bottom, and this girl must be expected to behave in a specific way, and this girl may at one time forget the mannerism of the country where she is. She's bound to be in trouble. Now, the challenge is when these girls go, their passports are taken, as Linda said rightly, as we have pointed out rightly. Their passports are taken away from them. Now, if the girl is fallen in a country and she has no right to a passport, she's a prisoner. It simply means this girl is a slave, because she must work for this person. She doesn't know the country. There's no agent in this country. There's no ministry from Uganda following up on the environment of this girl. There's no hotline where she can call if she's in trouble. There's a problem already. It means her rights have been taken away from the time she enters this house. They call them Biyumba. These girls are raped on a daily. These girls are killed. They're harvested. Their organs are harvested. So these are challenges Mr. Maguma have pointed out. These are challenges Linda, my sister, has pointed out. So we ask ourselves, as lawyers, as human rights activists, what can we do? We are tired of seeing dead bodies coming back to our countries every now and again. I was reading a paper today from the Uganda Human Rights Commission saying last year alone, 28 people were returned dead from Saudi Arabia. 28 people. 27 of them were girls, and one was a boy, a young man. Now, if you are losing 28 people from one source, and we cannot know how many are killed, how many whose organs are harvested, how many are trafficked beyond the Middle East and taken elsewhere. So there is a problem, Mr. Maguma. So I was looking at your recommendations. They are very good. And I want to end my submission here with this observation that number one, me and you and Linda and Team Think Tank Africa and Team Court Activism Africa, we need to have joint papers, joint communique, and then we petition the relevant agencies, we petition our countries, we petition other international bodies, we petition regional bodies in the Middle East with a complaint. But also, we need to push our parliaments into acting. The other day, I was seeing the member of parliament called Nkunyinji Mwada from Bobby Wine's constituency. The member of parliament representing Bobby Wine was in Dubai just a week ago. And the photos of flooding girls in the so-called city square of Dubai, lacking where to sleep, lacking what to eat, lacking sanitary pads, flooded in an open space, over 500 girls. Photos of which you have seen, they are all over the media, they are all over the internet, and many of them Ugandan girls speaking my language and Yubaguma, lacking what to eat, and an MP goes there, sleeps there for 2 nights, outside with them, takes these videos, and the government of Uganda has not acted up to now. When an MP openly was sleeping outside with these girls crying, they are sleeping on soil, on the floor, in the grass, in a wet, cold environment, cold environment. And no one in the government of Museveni seems to be concerned. The MP has gone there and exposed the situation. Now, what else can we do? Now, we need to take this battle beyond our governments, because as I said, our governments officials benefit from this. They own the companies. The problem is that even when we lament, even when we make all these cries here, many girls are willing to go. Every day, over 100 girls fly, leaving Uganda as a case study, going to Middle East, 100 each day. Linda, how many could be taken in just 1 month? That's over
Terrible, yeah.
300,000 girls leaving the country on an average in a month. Even if it was 100, that would be so
Too many.
That would
Yeah.
be so many. Even if it was 100,000 leaving the country each year, but not being able to be documented, not being able to be followed, it means we are giving away the future of the country into slavery. It means we are going to have effects on the psyche of these people. Look at that map, African trafficking routes. Linda has done very good research there. These are screenshots. These are the research done by Linda here. Top 20 African migrant countries. Look at the top 20. And
We'll have them on the Facebook page as well.
So Linda,
we'll put them on the Facebook page too, yeah.
Linda, I want you to take it from here and explain to us these slides. Please go ahead and explain to us these slides as we find ways moving forward. What can we do about this? Linda, please go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Kato. And thanks, Council Baguma as well for very interesting. I'm looking forward to reading all the documents after the show as well, because I haven't been on the group. Well, it's like you say, and these figures that you're talking about are actually the recorded figures. There are so many more people that are being moved that we know nothing about. And we are aware of the huge number of people that are moving from Uganda to the UAE. But when you look at the overall statistics, you see that Uganda doesn't even feature in the statistics because there are still so few people from Uganda going there, which shows you the scale of what we potentially face here and what is happening in our other countries. The DRC has a huge number of people that are being trafficked each year, and places like Mali and the countries that we don't hear what's going on in these countries. And I'm just saying, as horrific as it is for us, because we're aware of the huge numbers from Uganda, that's just a tiny drop in the ocean of the number of women and girls that are being trafficked off our continent, that are being trafficked for labor through employment agencies. I still call it trafficking, as I said earlier on. It's no different. People are going willingly, but they're not actually going willingly, because once they get there, they have the passport taken, and they are being used as forced labor. The problem we have is that the largest percentage of women that are being taken off our continent are women and young girls. Second, and then after that is men and young boys. And the women are the fabric of our societies, and they are the ones that hold our communities together. And they are the ones, that are the glue that holds families together. And this is just another issue that I have with what I see as being the deliberate breakdown of the African family unit. It's just continuing, and we need to raise more awareness and education in our schools and with our young women. The United Nations, I think we need to approach them as individual countries and in our own capacities to find out exactly what is happening, because when I see that they've been dealing with the situation since 1988, and it's now 2022, and those numbers are rising every year, and there are worse and more horrible cases coming out weekly, just about, from the UAE. We've got to ask ourselves, something is very wrong here. It really is very wrong here. If the United Nations can't get on top of it, who have got airport controls in place and are working with Interpol, we need to then ask the United Nations, what is the issue here, and how can we get involved as private NGOs, as concerned citizens. These are our women and girls and men and boys, and if enough is not being done to help them, we need to find out why, and not just think that because there's a big organization like the UN in control that everything's going to be okay, because clearly it's not. And we need to start looking at statistics and asking ourselves these questions. I'll just mention, because I was talking about that earlier and I didn't complete that. United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime. They have a base in Nairobi, Kenya, and they also have a base in North Africa. They had a conference recently. They just put out their 2021 report, which I do have a copy of. We can perhaps also put on Facebook. They are enhancing interregional cooperation to combat trafficking in people by air in East Africa to the Middle East. This is a statement, a mandate that they had out since the 80s, 90s. That was what their intention was. They have a program called Aircorp, where they apparently have officials at all our main airports, especially those in East Africa, where they've got Interpol controls and things in place. They are also monitoring road routes. And apparently, this is the thing now, and I don't know where people are going to the Middle East and are being moved on from there, because in the recent statistics, which I found really sobering, more than 40% of victims in the Middle East were from East Africa. So we look at the high numbers of people being trafficked from all our countries. It's clear that the East Africans are being kept in the Middle East, and a lot of our other countries, people are being obviously trafficked further on, because when you look at the statistics, a country like Mali has got a huge percentage of people being trafficked, but yet 40% of the people, the victims in the Middle East, are from Uganda, which I find quite interesting as to why. Is it because it's a trial market for them, and then maybe they'll start moving the Ugandans, the East Africans, to Europe, and then maybe they'll do a trial with traffic victims from our southern countries or something. I just don't know why.
Linda, just to explain a little bit, because as I said, mafias in Uganda involve state actors, yes. People who own labor recruiting agencies are from the first family, or people working with the NRM, the ruling party, or people close to those with power. So they own these labor exporting companies. Because as I said, it's not easy to export people outside the country, anywhere in the world. In Uganda, the requirements are quite many. But let me tell you, we have over 100 labor exporting companies in Uganda. But as Baguma is aware, Council Baguma, it's not easy to open up that company. It must be verified. It must be certified. It must be registered. But these guys get registered. These guys get all these contacts. And you must have contacts in those countries. These guys get these contacts. Why? Because they are in bed with the ruling class. So for them, it's an income. Because remember, our girls, our boys are sold practically. The way you sell a player. Some of you watch football. I think Council Baguma loves soccer. Me, I no longer watch football. I take it as another form of slavery. I no longer watch football that much. But it's like you are buying a soccer player. You are buying a Ronaldo, and you are selling him to another team. This is how it is in Uganda. Because actually, girls will tell you, I was sold to this agency. I was sold to this company. You have been hearing this. I have relatives who have gone abroad. We call it abroad in the Middle East, and they tell you, Bantunda, I was sold into a family. Now, if someone uses that word, I was sold, that is slavery, pure and simple. And who's selling them? A Ugandan company sells them to a company in the Middle East, and the company in the Middle East pays the Ugandan company in advance. That's why when they're advertising, they will tell you, don't worry about transport, free passport processing. You have been hearing this, Council Baguma. Ask yourself, what is free in this? It is free because the agency in Saudi Arabia, the agency in Oman, the agency in Qatar sends money to the Ugandan company, and this agency is actually buying this girl. That's why when they reach at the airport, their passports are taken away. Why? Because we're property of this new agency. And the new agency is not interested in your life, is interested in you serving and getting this money back. That's why the girls are told you were bought, but you'll be paid part of the money. And you are going to work for 2 years before you can get your freedom. The contract is normally for 2 years before you can buy your freedom back. But don't worry, we shall be paying you part of the money. But you have no freedom until when the money we used to pay you is recouped. Now, this is why I'm answering your question that way. That why is Uganda selling so many? The answer is the mafias in Uganda own the agencies that export labor in the Middle East. Linda, over to you. Back to you.
Kato, maybe you can also just explain to us what that photograph is on the screen at the moment.
Yes.
Just for people who perhaps don't know it.
The photograph there is taken in one of the reception centers in Dubai, and the same scenario has been playing out in Oman and in Qatar. Now, those girls are sleeping on each other because they're in what we call a waiting area to be cleared so that they can be returned back in their countries. Now, when you go there and you misbehave and the employer no longer wants you, what they normally do, they return them to the agency in that country. And the agency must refund money to the employer because the employer paid in advance. Now, what the agency does is to put these girls in the collection center, as you can see, one room, no space, no beddings, no cover, no food, nothing. Now, they are put there as their papers are processed so that they can be brought back to their countries. And they can spend a month, 2 or 3 in that situation. Many of them run mad in that situation. Many of them mentally are broken down in the situation because they are in want. They have no sanitary pads. They have no food that is sufficient. They cannot bathe. They cannot sleep properly. And they can be in that situation for 3-4 months until when they are returned back home. So that's just the photo in one of those reception centers. These girls are being cleared, and clearing can take months, can take 6 months, because they are negotiating with the government of Uganda to buy their freedom back, to pay for their tickets. And the government of Uganda, Kenya, and etc. may not be able to pay on time. So these girls end up suffering for months and months and months, waiting to be returned back home. That's the photo, Linda. Very sad, sad photo.
Thanks, Kato. It is. I saw a program the other day as well where there were a whole lot of Ugandan ladies living in a park in Dubai who didn't have their passports even. The employers still had them. And they were just living hand to mouth in the park, and there was somebody appealing for funds to help them. It's just very, very sad because in a working environment in government, you would be able to rely on you would go to your embassy. You would go to the embassy of the Ugandan embassy. So we've also got to ask, Dennis just put a comment there now, what's happening in our embassies over there that are supposed to be there to support people that are stuck in foreign countries without passports. And I see we also had a comment from Liberia, from Levi in Liberia. Thanks. I know we were going to try and get him on the show tonight. That's another thing. Liberia have got huge issues with all their people. The same thing is happening with their people, but in Oman. So it's happening everywhere. And we just, I see you've got another photograph up there. Lawyers moved to stop East Africa Labour export. I hadn't seen that this week. This is obviously something that's taken place in Uganda. Is it in Uganda? I see the Daily Monitor carries the story. I must read up more about that. But there are so many laws in place, and there are so many organizations in place. You would not think that it would be increasing to the extent that it is. We've got Air Corp, which is Interpol at the airports, and we've got the airport program. There's apparently a huge program at the airports. There's a better management migration program, which is apparently also running in East Africa, which I'm not aware of, and GLOW Act, which works together with the UAE to prevent these things from happening. And they say that there are airport law enforcement, special police officers, and prosecutors involved. Now, I just have to say that I've been to United Nations with complaints about things that are happening to do with the prison conditions in Nigeria, things that they aren't upholding the basic human rights. And I also have been to the United Nations because we have issues with what's happening to the Ugandan people in Kakuma concentration camp, just over the border in Kenya. And the United Nations just basically say that there are no issues, and I'm just talking from the refugee crisis now, that everything goes through their head office in Nairobi. And everything in Nairobi is then dealt with, all the complaints all escalated through to the USA. And this is clearly not happening. And as an African and someone who's lived in East Africa for most of my adult life, I'm fully aware of, we all are, of how corruption works. So I would say straight off, without any solid evidence, that there's obviously corruption happening at the United Nations office in Nairobi if these horrific things are not being reported that we have evidence of in the refugee camps. And I'm talking about not the normal lack of food, and I'm talking about the rape and killing and threatening our Ugandan men at the water points in the camps and things like that, and really serious crimes. And our women are not allowed to report them unless they pay the police in the camp and this kind of thing. It's not getting through to the United Nations, and I imagine it's being stopped in Nairobi, is what I'm saying. If Nairobi is the office that I was told to go through and nothing is done, we know there's a problem there. So what I'm saying is that I know for a fact that there's a block to do with refugees from the Nairobi office that is not protecting the rights of Ugandan citizens on their own soil, on East African soil. So if that is the case, then I would hazard a guess and say that there's obviously stuff going on at the United Nations. It's impossible when you look at the figures and all the special units they supposedly have at the airports with Interpol and all that this is increasing all the time. And as you say, we're getting all these bodies coming back to us on aircraft, and probably on the same aircraft that are taking fresh people back over to the UAE. And who is speaking up for these girls? We're just told the UN are handling it and they've got all these things in place. But there's something very wrong here, and this is where we need to be able to start standing up collectively in our countries and say, but hold on. I have an issue with the fact that United Nations is even on our continent, because I believe they are one of the tools that keep us oppressed. We're perfectly capable as Africans of having taken over all these services ourselves many years ago. And we are kept reliant on food aid and things. I have a big problem when I'm dealing with human rights issues, and the only body that can do anything for me is the United Nations, and I'm hitting walls in different countries with things time and time again, where United Nations are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I'm just saying is that the buck has to stop somewhere, and we have to stop asking questions. And we as Africans have to stop feeling that anything with a Western stamp on it is like God, like, oh, it's the United Nations, my goodness. We've got to start saying, hold on, we are intelligent African people, and something's not right here. We have got every right to politely and within the law question what these organizations are doing for us, because they are gaining far more from Africa than we as African people are gaining from their presence here. And I'm sorry, but it's not helping. Human rights are on the increase and getting worse everywhere. And when I see that the only organization that's controlling trafficking is the United Nations, and I look at the figures of how it's increasing, you've got to ask yourself the question, there's something is wrong here. And I mean, there's obviously corruption and things involved on every level. And if our governments won't give us answers because they are in cahoots with them, then we have to start making a noise with the United Nations office in Geneva and overseas, collectively, all our countries, not acceptable. That the United Nations are not doing what they are supposed to be doing on our continent, because we have got the lives of our people at stake here. And we have to stand up collectively, because no one else is going to do it for us, Kato. And most of our people seem to think that the West are going to come and bail us out of all the trouble that we're in, and that they are like the saviors of the world, and they're not. We have to start relying on each other and on our African court systems and our African courts and the AU, and we have to just start using our local bodies, and that's just how I feel about it. But I try not to be biased, and I only speak from facts and the experience that I personally have with the United Nations. And I have issues with them. I'm sorry, but one corrupt person, it's like having a bad apple in a basket of apples. All those apples are going to be tainted in some way. And as an African, I just don't find it acceptable that we just sit back and think it's okay because it's the United Nations. It's not okay. So that's.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Linda. That was very powerful. Councillor, I want to come back to you as we talk way forward. Linda has given us her perspective on the way forward, and basically, I think she's right because we need to go a step further. Your recommendations are very on point. Council, that I want you to explain briefly more in the next 5 minutes. I do believe, Linda, to follow up before Baguma comes in, that we need to start a name and shame. I believe in a name and shame. Let us identify the individuals behind these companies, say in Uganda. Baguma, I know some of them, and in the next talk show, I actually announce their names and the names of the company, because in the near future, we shall have a follow-up talk show on the same issue. I'm going to line up names of companies as they are registered at the list of companies in Uganda, and as are registered with the NGO, and they are registered with all other authorities, especially names of companies which are approved. We have to know the companies, but also we have to know the guys behind these companies. And then we write a document having the names of companies and people behind these companies, and we expose them in what we can call name and shame. Because yes, we may not take them to courts of law and win them, since they have the so-called contracts, but we can expose them so that people who are losing their children know that the blood of the lost lives are on the hands of this and this and this and this guy. People with powerful positions in Uganda, selling our girls in slavery, but not doing enough to put an enabling law to protect them. Not doing enough to engage the countries outside to protect them, because there are countries like Philippines. Philippines has a working arrangement with these companies. Filipinos are doing this kind of work in Arab countries, but they are more protected than Ugandan girls, for example. Now, not only Africans are doing this kind of slavery, to be on record, there are others. Many people are poor all over the world. There are people from Asia. I've just mentioned Malaysia. I've just mentioned Philippines. They are doing this kind of work in the Middle East. But ask yourself, why is it that the black people facing much of this wrath? And girls from Malaysia, girls from Singapore, girls from Philippines, and some from India. India has girls working as maids in the Middle East. India has them. Simply check your records. The question would be, why are the Africans taken as beasts of burdens, and then the Indian who is doing the same job is respected? Why is a Malaysian respected? Why is a Filipino respected when a black maid is taken like an animal? Answer partly is their countries fall up. Their countries respect the value, the life of these girls, because they know they earn them lots of money, because they know their lives come first. So these countries have working agreements, working treaties, if I can use that, between these governments. They have ministries, they have embassies that work, they have lawyers that follow up. Girls are allowed to remain with their phones. Baguma, in most of these Biyumba, in most of these houses abroad, once the girl arrives, the phone is taken, the passport is taken. Now, how can you expect this girl to communicate without a phone? How do you expect this girl to run away without a passport, without knowing who to call in time of danger? So these are
It's a foreign language as well. There's the language barrier, huge language barrier with the Arabic.
Yeah, because she's forced to learn Arabic, which is not so easy for anyone from English-speaking country. It's not so easy. So, Baguma, as we wind up, I want to invite you to give your way forward. And after that way forward, Linda will give us a closing short, closing remarks for this talk show. Councillor Baguma, welcome with the way forward. More of your conclusion, and we wind up this talk show.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Council Kato. Thank you, Council Linda. I've had a lot of learning this evening listening to my senior Linda at law. I think she has given me much more to do some introspection of the role of some of these institutions. And in particular, I typed in the chat box, we need to examine the role of the International Organization for Migration in Uganda, especially.
Yes.
We need to see them and see what it is that they are doing to stem these problems. And why, when our girls are crying, they are not intervening because they have the UN mandate.
Exactly, that's my point.
And two, I'm also thinking that it is important also to visit the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights in Uganda at Kololo Hill and find out what it is that they are doing about this state of affairs, because they have a direct mandate to monitor these rights abuses or to prevent them, for that matter. So that is some learning for me. Also, in reference to what my senior Kato has been saying, the name and shame. I'll give you updates that last week, Parliament approved the amendment to the Companies Act of 2012. The amendment is in reference to an insertion of section 21 something, to the effect that the names of directors and founders of the company must be published.
Yeah.
So this speaks to your interest.
Thank you so much, Council.
It's a good amendment. It was approved last week.
Very good amendment.
Yes. Then also the issue of passports. When I read this retainer of passport habit, these countries, they were quoting the then permanent secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Uganda as of 2019, Dr. Patrick Mugoya. He was stating that the visa system in Oman is framed in such a way that it is a citizen who must apply for a visa for the incoming migrant worker, and that the law is framed in such a way that when a worker arrives, they are owned by the person bringing them in, and therefore when they confiscate the passport from them, it is not the business of the government of Oman to follow up on what happens between the worker-employer relationship. I cross-referenced that
Sure.
with the review by the Committee on the Protection of Migrant Workers under that convention. The practice or the measures that were recommended to the Saudi government, one of them included not retaining workers' passports. So I think it goes across all these countries. I think what we need is advocacy, but I'm very inclined to the thinking that we must have an international case coming against these countries so that we put them on spot. It is something we can think about. There are a lot of
Yes.
international lawyers around.
Yes.
We must look at this really as something we can enjoy in our states for failing on their responsibility to protect and fulfill. The other final word I would say is I agree entirely with you that these companies could be named, but we need to have time and resources to do thorough research so that we do not have any backlash or
Sure.
or gap where these people can take us to court
Yeah.
because we,
Sure.
because we defamed them or because we tried to destroy the character and the brand of their companies. So we need to be sure that we have evidence that is on public record,
Yes.
and then go ahead to do this.
Yes.
We need to
As
think
our
of the people
fallback.
back in Uganda, that there's no lashback on them, because you know that they will be the ones that carry the brunt. You people in Uganda will be the ones that carry the brunt of that. So you need to be very careful.
Yeah,
To
Council,
that.
thank you so much for. I think we're done. Are you done, Council?
I'm done, Council.
Thank you so much, Council, for that insightful way forward. Yeah, as a lawyer,
Okay.
you know you are right.
Council, I should just mention one thing I forgot to say.
Yes.
We had this meeting last Saturday. On Sunday, a video went viral in Uganda where a Ugandan young lady was being killed live on screen.
Yes.
I don't know whether you have seen that video. It
I have
happened
seen
last
that.
week.
Which one? There's so many. Which one? There's been a few.
I've seen that. It's on our platform. I've seen that.
And one of the girls in the Middle East gave a testimony that she's a village mate from Rubirizi, somewhere in Western Uganda.
Yes.
So I said, really, this impunity is too much for us.
Yes.
Something has to be done.
Thank you so much. Council, that's not the first case. I should tell you on set, all of you, Linda and Councilor Guma, I should tell you on set that I have relatives who have gone to the Middle East, relatives, daughters of my aunties who are sisters to my father. So that's how close it is. 3 of them have gone to the Middle East, and 2 of them came back mad.
Mad.
Brain mad. 2 of them.
Like mentally insane.
Mentally, they came back mentally unstable. And they had to be taken
I've seen a number of those.
To be treated.
And suicides as well, which is very unusual for our people to commit suicide. There's been suicides over there.
My cousins came back mentally sick. Now, and I've been saying this, anyone who thinks that Western Uganda is okay because Museveni comes from there, they are telling a lie. I cannot remember how many planes I've boarded in the last 10 years, and I've shared seats with girls from Western Uganda going to Middle East to suffer as slaves. Banyankole, Banyarwanda, Bachiga, I have traveled with them on Qatar Airways, on Ethiopian Airways. Over the last 10 years, I've been traveling. But whenever I use those planes, I've been going with these girls, and me, I normally create a conversation to know my neighbor. And I was knowing firsthand that these girls basically come from Western Uganda, like the rest of Uganda. So no region, no tribe is better off in Uganda. It should be on record, Council Baguma. It's just individuals.
True,
The
true.
girl who was murdered, Baguma, Museveni does not benefit a tribe. So for us to say Banyankole benefiting, Swansea is benefiting, we are missing the big picture. The girl who was killed is a Munyankole. The girl who was killed live is from a district neighboring to the president's district.
True.
See, Rubirizi, neighboring to the president's district. So Linda, when you talk about a dead system, there's not no tribe. Banyankole girls are going abroad to become prostitutes, just like Baganda girls, just like girls from northern Uganda. Why? Because the economy is stupid. Because the country, as I normally say, is a failed state. So for me, I no longer look at Uganda in terms of tribes. All of us, Baguma, me and you, are in the same boat.
True.
All of us Ugandans are in the same boat. So when we are going to talk about name and shame, we need to identify the companies. Baguma, I know the companies. One of them is called Shalwa. I know these companies.
Shalwa.
Yeah, I know these companies. Middle East agencies. I know these companies. And I know the names of the directors who take girls and sell them abroad, and they don't follow up. I know these companies because in the two cases, I was forced to call them and issue a notice of intention to sue one of these companies where my cousin was mistreated. So I know these companies very well. Some of them I know, and I've talked to some of the directors who are so reckless. So in my conclusion, Baguma, I agree with you, and I have to thank you for the time, and I have to thank you for the paper you have researched, and I've said you are going to share it. In fact, my new writing, I'll quote it, and I'll give you the credit because it is depth, it's well researched, but as the way forward, number one is to know who is involved in this crime. Baguma and Council Linda, this is a crime against humanity.
It is.
Modern day slavery is a crime against humanity, and all of us must stand up and challenge it. Baguma, right now, as I speak, I have 4 relatives in the Middle East. As I speak right now, I have 4 relatives in the Middle East. And I have 6 students who went through my college in the Middle East. I know. It means there are many others I may not know. But I have 6 students who went through my college and they're in the Middle East, Oman, Dubai, Qatar. And I have a nephew who is in Qatar right now as I speak. So when we speak these things, we know our relatives are in the line of fire. Why? Because Uganda has become a coffin. Baguma, there's no way I can blame someone to go abroad and look for a bread, as you said. There's no way because they are dying in the country. My relatives are educated. They're on streets for years. Now, why doesn't he go and become a truck driver? Why doesn't he go and become a supermarket attendant? If there's a chance, Baguma, they should go and work. So we are not against working, but we are in for a better working environment for our relatives all over Africa. And as I said, what hurts me is that the black person is the one taken as a slave. The Philippine, the Malaysian, the Indian is respected at work. Why is the black skin demonized by these Arabs? That is my concern. That's why we need to take effort and expose this. And yes, as a reminder, I must say, not every Arab is bad. There have been some cases where Arabs have treated Africans very well. Not every Arab family is bad, but majority of them I can say 80% of these families are terror families to the black girl.
I'm
And
sorry
some
to
of
cut you
them,
short. I'm sorry to cut you. I'm seeing this just in that Linda has shared. Is
yes,
this the girl
No,
I've
no,
been
I
seeing
think it was
trending?
from Uganda. They've shared it from Uganda.
Okay.
Kenya's
I saw
ambassador to Saudi Arabia.
I saw this kid emaciated in some pictures doing rounds. Is this the
Yes,
one?
Yes,
look how thin she is.
yes,
And
she's
this is the
finally going
animal
back.
is this the animal with a big belly who has been treating her like that?
Yes. No.
That's,
This is the ambassador, Saudi Arabia ambassador, finally, out of shame, she's returning her back. Because the government of Kenya, this is a very good information. Kenya's ambassador is right there in that checked shirt, is the one who put pressure on the Saudi Arabians to return this girl back home. This girl is Kenyan. She's called Chibukuti or something like that. Chibroit.
okay.
But because the government of Kenya worked out of pressure on social media, this girl is being returned back home. But the girl is at the verge of death. She's skinny, she's bones.
True.
But she's lucky because social media exposed her. Today, I put her on our page called activism. You are going to see this girl on our page. She's there. All of us have been talking about this girl's right to medication and going back home. Kenya has some of the best medical facilities in Africa. Why should she be dying in Saudi Arabia? So finally, she's going back home. Why? Because social media worked. As a way forward, social media is a tool for good. We can use it to create publicity so that such cases are saved from oblivion. Council, I want to thank you so much. In conclusion, Linda, I want to thank you so much. Might have given my way forward partly. Next time, we shall add from there. Linda, way forward and your conclusion, and then a closure. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching.
Yes, thank you both so much. I think that we've discussed a lot of really good ideas and tonight. Now we need to just try and put those into action. And it would be interesting on the group later to speak to people from other countries. I saw Zambia's name came up as well in my figures that I was researching for trafficking. It's happening in all of our countries, and most of the exit routes are from Mombasa, as I said, in Kenya. So we need to work together collectively and to put pressure on the organizations within each of our countries that work with the international organizations like the United Nations, so that we do have rights. And as commendable as this is that the ambassador has got involved, yes, social media is a wonderful tool, but the thing is, this has been going on for a long time. Why has it reached the stage where the ambassador has to get involved? It shouldn't reach that stage. And I would imagine, I'd hazard a guess to say that he's been forced into a corner with all the election stuff going on and at the moment in Kenya. He's realized, my goodness, Kenya, you better go and show that you're doing something out there because everyone's eyes are on this case. Because, I mean, what has been done for it to reach this stage? That's what we have to ask as well. The United Nations is present in Kenya, and this is the first time I've ever heard of an ambassador getting involved. I would also be interested, I know you went through the manifestos of the recent presidential candidates. How did any of their manifestos include issues on how they were going to tackle the human trafficking through their country? That's what I would like to know. So I'm saying, ideal, this is great, but I look at it skeptically. Because why is such a thing? It's in all the press and it's making breaking news now. Did the story make it overseas? And Kenya are now feeling that they do not get caught with their pants down. They better just quickly react so that they are seen to look good in I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just cynical after living for so long, my whole life in Africa. And I'm just cynical of this. We have to harness, and I'm so glad that another person's life has been saved. But maybe we should use this case. Let's ride off the back of it for human rights and make an example of this case and try and hopefully raise awareness for other girls that are still stuck out there in the same situation. This lady who's returned, she must have a lot of inside knowledge of what's going on there and people who do need help and how they can be helped. So this is something that we should follow and not just let it fade into the yesterday news story, because we need to act. it's fine for ambassadors and governments to make a fanfare over one or two things, but it's got to be consistent. Consistency is key. It's the only way we're going to overcome these problems, I feel personally.
Thank you so much, Linda. That was powerful. I was reading through on the screenshot, the messages that is going there. It is powerful. And thank you, Linda, for organizing that. Just imagine that a country like UAE refused to sign bilateral agreements, treaties with
That's
other
correct,
countries
yes.
in terms of protecting freedoms of these girls, no freedom of space, press, no freedom of movement. Girls are being stoned to death because they are breaking a certain law. Activities cannot go there and actually approach embassies or government. I mean, we are sending our girls to death. We are sending them to a death trap. But why?
And
Because
the problem
there's
is in
nothing
most of our countries, our people do not know their own rights. Nobody knows their human rights. Nobody knows
Yes.
international human rights, which is why I've said it's vital that we try and start putting programs into our schools, those that we can, like the humanist schools. We have to start. People do not know their rights in their own country, let alone in a foreign country where they don't even speak the language or read it. That's a huge issue as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Linda. Please giving us a close the show. It's all in your hands right now.
My cat obviously wants to get involved here. So thank you so much for everyone that's watched us tonight. And I know we have a huge viewership of the show in the following week. Please interact with us on our platform and join in the discussion. And we have representatives from different countries that we're talking behind the scenes on our WhatsApp group, which we've had to obviously take it on invitation only. So please let us know if you're watching tonight from another country and you feel that you have the same issue, or you have ideas where we can work together, or things that are working for you. Please let us know. Just drop us a message on the Facebook platform saying who you are, and then we can add you to our group, and you can join our discussion, because the idea is that we all work together from each country with all the different experience that we have and things that are happening, so that we can work together to try and find solutions for things like this that affect us all as humanists, as equals, on the same level footing, no matter our religion or background or tribe or country, and just work together as human beings for human beings, because nobody is putting Africans first, Black Africans first, and we need to start putting ourselves first and speaking up for each other, and because nobody else is going to do that for us. And I think that that's wonderful, because it's strength in numbers as well, and it's a strength and a force of good. We aren't going to win all these issues we have in Africa with blood and bullets and war. We're going to win with words, with getting things written into law, with our mouths speaking, education. I firmly believe that is the only way we're going to overcome our problems one day on this continent, which are going to take a long time to rectify. But we can make a start in small ways by getting laws into place and by starting to stand up together and say, we're not okay with this, we want changes. And I think that collectively we can do it better if we all put pressure on, say, the United Nations from various countries about the human trafficking. It's not just one country that's complaining and that can be swept under the carpet. You've got 30, 40 countries. We've got a third of our countries represented in Africa now on the platform. So a third of countries in Africa, if we've all got one or two representatives from each that are contacting the UN with issues in their countries, something has to be done. Something has to be done. Our voices are louder collectively than they are as single voices. As Africans, we are naturally loud, exuberant people. So let's join our voices and be loud and exuberant for human rights and for our people, for the next generation that follow behind us, because that's what it's all about, really. It's making Africa a better place. And this is, I think, something that we can all get involved with. So any ideas that you have, please, we want to, Kato and I just have this as a platform, but we welcome ideas from all over, and from those who have a lot more experience and knowledge than we do on these topics. Like I say, we're all equal, and everybody is warmly welcomed to Table Africa, where we're going to discuss all these issues together. Thank you. Thank you so much, Councillor Baguma, and thank you, Katoa, for another good show.
Thank you so much, Councillor Baguma. Thank you so much, Councillor Linda. And a good night to everyone.
And good night, all viewers.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Linda.
Good night, Councillor Baguma. Good night, Linda. Thank you.